Thank you, Leader Pelosi, for that very inspiring message. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of the president of the local chapter of the NAACP and a dear friend of ours, Reverend Amos Brown, who is here. We also have with us dedicated and hardworking servants elected to represent us and advocate on our behalf. We have with us the newly elected Assemblyman David Chu. And at last, we extend a very special thanks to the newly elected President of the Board of Supervisors, London Breed, and Supervisors Malia Cohen and Scott Wiener for joining us here today. And at this time, we would ask President Breed to come and offer a welcome on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco.
Thank you all for being here today. And I want to start by saying, first, giving honor to God. Now more than ever, we need to have a moral compass. We need to have God at the center of our life. Regardless of your religion, I am here because people prayed for me. I grew up in this city, in public housing. I had a job because Reverend Calvin Jones from Providence Baptist Church and Mary Booker and Laura Luster and other folks in the community, they took care of me. They knew that I needed support. They knew that I needed nurturing. And yes, I was rough around the edges back then, and some may say that still exists now. But the reality is, a community raised me. And the reason why we are losing our young people is because we don't have enough folks who are rolling up their sleeves and taking care of all of our children. All lives matter. But we are losing too many African American boys, not just to police officers, but to black boys and men. And we have got to hold them accountable. So my greeting from San Francisco is to those individuals, when you know your kids are involved in this violence, let's turn them in to save their lives and to save somebody else's life. I know that's not popular to say. One life lost is too many, and anyone who takes a life needs to be held accountable. So let's roll up our sleeves in San Francisco. Our kids can succeed. They are smart, they are bright, all lives matter, my life mattered. It could have been a completely different story, and now here I am as president of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. You tell me God ain't real, God is real. So today, as we welcome you all to San Francisco, we ask you to pray for our communities, pray for our police officers, pray for our leaders, that they find it in their hearts to do better for the citizens that we are here to serve. And finally, Dr. Martin Luther King's dream of 1963 can be realized, not denied. Deferred, but not denied. If we keep rolling up our sleeves and working hard every single day, we will make sure that we change the minds and the hearts of the people who want to see our country be the place that Dr. Martin Luther King had as he gave his I Have a Dream speech. We can do it, people. I'm looking to all of you. Help me do it. Thank you.
The voice of the youth are rising up, and we ask that you today, can you please sing along with Eileen Young?
Yes. All right, so my goal is to not sing by myself, okay? All right, so we're going to do the first verse of We Shall Overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart,
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Fitzgerald. I'm the president of the University of San Francisco. I am grateful for the invitation to read the following excerpt from the famous text by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the letter from the Birmingham City Jail. It is Dr. King's written response while he sat unjustly imprisoned for speaking truth to power. He wrote this letter to several white clergymen. They had called on Dr. King to call off the protests, to get all the outside agitators to leave town, to leave Birmingham, and to leave it to the people of Birmingham to work out their differences. Their theological reasoning deeply troubled Dr. King, and he began to write a response on the very newspaper itself. Dr. King writes in Why We Can't Wait, quote, "Begun on the margins of the newspaper in which the statement appeared while I was in jail. The letter continued on scraps of writing paper supplied by a friendly black trustee and concluded on a pad my attorneys were eventually permitted to leave me." One of those attorneys representing Dr. King was Clarence Jones, who became Dr. King's political advisor, speechwriter, and legal counsel. Dr. Jones is currently diversity scholar and visiting professor at the University of San Francisco, and I am glad to call him a friend of the university and still a champion for the cause. Dr. King, I am cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Never again can we afford to live with the narrow, provincial, outside agitator idea. Anyone who lives inside the United States can never be considered an outsider anywhere within its bounds. Now is the time to make real the promise of democracy and transform our pending national elegy into a creative psalm of brotherhood. Now is the time to lift our national policy from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of human dignity. These words helped transform Birmingham. These words still apply today. I ask you one favor. When you go home or you pull out your smartphone or you visit a library, read Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail. The words ring true in Ferguson, in New York City, in San Francisco, throughout our land, and around our world. Thank you.
We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we'll walk hand in hand someday.
My name is Dan Feeder, and I'm the senior rabbi at Peninsula Temple Sholem in Burlingame. I'm a native San Franciscan, and I must say it is a very deep honor to have walked hand in hand with Mr. Brown to honor the great prophet of the 20th century on this day. I don't know why it's so hard for us human beings to honor basic dignity in each other. Why it's so hard to honor the divinity in each other. But I know that when we can realize the dream of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, we will have done his work, and we will have done God's work. I'd like to share these words from Dr. King, spoken in 1967. This call for a worldwide fellowship that lifts neighborly concern beyond one's tribe, race, class, and nation is in reality a call for an all-embracing and unconditional love for all men. This oft misunderstood and misinterpreted concept, so readily dismissed by the Nietzsches of the world as a weak and cowardly force, has now become an absolute necessity for the survival of man. When I speak of love, I am not speaking of some sentimental and weak response. I am speaking of that force which all of the great religions have seen as the supreme unifying principle of love. Love is somehow the key that unlocks the door, which leads to the ultimate reality. This Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Buddhist belief about ultimate reality is beautifully summed up in the first epistle of St. John. Let us love one another, for love is God, and everyone that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. If we love one another, God dwelleth in us, and his love is perfected in us. Amen.
We shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free one day. All deep in my heart, I do believe we shall all be free someday.
Good afternoon. I'm Reverend Mary Frazier, Senior Pastor of the Bread of Life Worship Center, also known as Bread of Life Evangelistic Outreach, in the city of East Palo Alto. And it is, amen. Got some East Palo Alto people. And I am honored to stand before you today. It's a privilege to be here. I also want to acknowledge that I was allowed to be the chairperson of our San Mateo County Martin Luther King celebration. And so I truly am pleased to be with you and to share a part of the wonderful speech that we all remember, the I Have a Dream speech by Reverend Martin Luther King, dated August 28, 1963. And I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face difficulties, the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It's a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. Amen.
We are not alone. We are not alone. Someday, oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we are not alone.
I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day, right there in Alabama, little boys and little black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley will be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, though the rough places will be made plain, and crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day when all God's children will be able to sing with a new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring.
For my people everywhere, singing their love songs repeatedly, their dirges, their ditties, their blues, and their jubilees, praying their prayers nightly to an unknown God, bending their knees humbly to an unseen power. For my people, lending their strength to the years, to the gone years, the now years, and the maybe years, washing, scrubbing, sewing, mending, plowing, digging, planting, pruning, patching, dragging along, never knowing, never reaping, and never understanding. For my playmates, in the clay and dust and sand of Alabama backyards, playing, baptizing, and preaching, and doctor, and jail, and soldier, and school, and mama, and cooking, and playhouse, and concert, and store, and hair, and Mrs. Chumbe and company. For the cramped and bewildered years that we went to school to learn to know the reasons why, and the answers to, and the people who, and the places where, and the days when, in memory of the hour that we discovered that we were black and poor and small and different. And nobody cared, nobody wondered, and nobody understood. For the boys and girls who grew in spite of these things, to be man and woman, to laugh and to dance and sing and play and drink their wine and religion and success, to marry their playmates and bear children and die of consumption, anemia, and lynching. For my people thrown in 47th Street in Chicago, Lenox Avenue in New York, Rampart Street in New Orleans, lost, disinherited, dispossessed, and happy people filling the cabarets and taverns and other people's pocket needing bread and shoes and milk and land and something all their own. For my people, walking blindly, spreading joy, and losing time being lazy, sleeping when hungry, shouting when burdened, drinking when hopeless,